Yeah, he drew up a good play. Kelly did what he's supposed to do down there. I felt confident, and the ball slipped. It's definitely a tough play, but I thought I felt confident, going to the right baseline and doing a pull-up. I've done that shot a million times, and unfortunately the ball slipped, and then from there we couldn't regroup. I mean, I don't know, I'm not in Marcus's head. Obviously, as a team, he owes us one, and I think we're all motivated, you know what I'm saying? So that's it.
Maybe Reggie got a hand on it, maybe somebody around him got a hand on it, but we just wanted to do a little misdirection for Evan to drive and let him create in space. And I thought, if he gets that shot off, that's his shot. So I felt good about it, to be honest. I mean, it didn't end well because he got knocked out of his hand, but or maybe it even slipped out of his hand. I haven't seen the replay, but I thought he had separation, and I thought he was going to get a good look.
Celtics fall in overtime, 105-97 to the Detroit Pistons. We're going to break down that fourth quarter in overtime here on the Garden Report, brought to you by Lynda.com and Peak Organic Brewing on CLNS Radio and Celtics Blog. Welcome to the Garden Report. I am Jared Weiss. I'm joined by Jimmy Toscano. We're both going a little cash today.
Sunday.
Yeah, it was Sunday. It was fun day. We had a lot of fun tonight. And the Celtics...
Didn't have that much fun.
They didn't have much fun at the end there. They ended up losing in overtime, despite what looked like a clear win for them going into pretty much midway through the fourth quarter. They were successful with their Hack-a-Dre strategy, yes. And then everything kind of fell apart for them in the fourth quarter. We're going to take a look at what Detroit did here. We're going to talk about some of the homecomings here. You had Tayshaun Prince facing his former team, Jonas Jerebko facing his former team, Gigi Jatome getting to watch his former team from the bench, which I guess is what he was kind of used to with his former team.
He got some early burn, but he didn't see much court time.
Which I was kind of shocked about. Why didn't Gigi get more minutes in this game? It seemed like he was a good fit for this game. Jay Crowder played 44 minutes. A lot of those probably would have gone to Gigi.
I just think Crowder was having a great game. I thought. I mean, he was their energy for a lot of moments where they looked to be lacking the energy. I'm especially talking about late in the fourth quarter, that one play that when he had the and one, they were
over Andre Drummond,
right?
Way over Andre Drummond.
They were hanging by a thread at that moment. I mean, everything was unraveling, and he went and he did that. And I just thought all game he was giving them. And in the second quarter is when he did a lot of his damage on the points. I think he had 12 points in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. But it was late in that fourth quarter where he came alive again, and I think they needed him in there over a guy like Gigi. But I was surprised that Gigi didn't get a little bit more playing time later on in the game after seeing him so early on. But I just think, and I asked Stevens about this, I just think the Pistons, they kind of make you play an unconventional way sometimes based on the players that they have out there, especially with Drummond, who's just such a force down low. They were playing lineups that we don't see that often. You didn't see Pressey in there that much. You saw, obviously, with Marcus Smart out of the game and Isaiah Thomas, you saw a lot of Evan Turner at the point guard position.
Well, let's save that talk for the second half because we do want to get into that. But first off, let's talk about where things kind of made their turn. So Stevens finishes off the third quarter going through for that Hack-a-Dre strategy. And
that was a great strategy.
It worked. He went 2 for 11 from the line.
0 for 7 to start.
I know. And then he hit 2 in a row, and then he missed 2 again. It was funny how that worked out. I mean, his free throw shooting is horrendous. He's shooting 39% coming into this game. I bet he's down to 38% by now.
It's like, I feel like for him, it's like the equivalent of us trying to shoot like a tennis ball. Yeah. Which is hard to do.
Just something Shaq talked a lot about while he was playing.
That
and you
said,
see Drummond's arm, he doesn't know where to put his arm. Yeah. I mean, his arms are so freaking long. It's like, how do you even set up a kind of a
free throws are all about rhythm, like if you don't have it, especially to start off, you're not going to get it.
Well, the thing is, with big guys with really long wingspans, most of them kind of learn how to shoot from like behind their head almost. KG does that. Carlos Boozer does it in kind of a weird way, but it works for him because it makes it so that their elbows aren't dipped too low and they have more control on their follow-through. So it would be interesting to see if those guys ever learn how to shoot.
He's going to talk to a guy.
Yeah.
Drummond's going to talk to a guy. And
get Andre, if you want to talk, buddy, we talked before the game and not about his shooting, more about his defense. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to go, Dre, whenever you want. But so he goes out of the game with a bit of a rolled ankle, it looked like, and Jody Meeks and Reggie Jackson, KCP, they just go nuts. They're pounding it up and down the floor. They're hitting their outside shots.
Transition.
Transition. And the one play that really stuck out to me was Jody Meeks got the ball, went coast to coast with it. He was holding off a defender, I think it was Avery Bradley, just like kind of like stiff arming him the entire way down the court, dribbling with one hand, which is of course how you're supposed to dribble the ball. And he had a really tough finish at the rim, scored. I thought that was the big momentum swing for Detroit, and the Celtics couldn't go to hacking Drummond and try to stem that tide like they did in the third quarter.
No, and their bench. Are you talking about in the fourth, right?
In the fourth,
and,
sure.
yeah. Their bench in the fourth was huge. I think they scored 16 out of their 25.
Yeah.
So, and the Celtics didn't have a guy like that in the fourth quarter that they could rely on. I know Crowder was 3 for 3. We talked about him earlier. Other than that, though, there wasn't anyone. Nobody was hot. Nobody came on. Like you needed Turner at some points in that fourth quarter, and he didn't show up. There was nobody on the bench that really had it tonight. Olynyk was cold all game, and they looked bad in the fourth quarter. They looked bad down the stretch on offense and on defense. And one play that sticks out is Olynyk again. After Bass misses the jumper that would have put them at 4. Detroit comes down in transition, and there's Tayshaun Prince wide open in the corner. Olynyk, I think he's asleep or something. I don't know where he was, but that puts Detroit up 1. Then you go back to the Crowder play, and then they answered again to tie it up. But I just thought it was sloppy, a lot of sloppy down the stretch. No execution on either end.
And we do have to talk about Olynyk in a few minutes because what the hell's going on with him? But that shot was great. The Tayshaun hit in the corner there.
Yeah.
It was the same shot that he was hitting for the Celtics in his brief month that he was here. And you saw him kind of going back and forth with somebody in the crowd after he hit that shot. He actually said after the game that was actually someone that was cheering for him, and he was
really?
basically thanking them for cheering for him. And he talked about, we'll talk about a little bit in part 2 about how warm of a reception he got here. He was really happy about that.
Yeah, good for him. But this was a bad loss for the Celtics.
Really
you know what I
bad.
mean? This was a bad loss. This is a game that they needed. Obviously, you want to have Smart out there. He let the team down by not being on the court for the game that they really needed to win. And I'm sure some of those guys feel that way, whether they say it or not. I really feel like, especially when you have Isaiah Thomas already out, this is a game where Marcus Smart this is why they drafted the guy, so he could be
Just
in
shut
the
down
game.
Reggie Jackson, hit some threes
to
late
get
in the game.
tons of minutes in a game like this where they need him, and this is a game where you want to see what he can do and what he can do for you. And he's not even on the bench because he's suspended. So that really hurts, and I'm interested to see how he comes out and plays tomorrow night. Coming back from that suspension.
And he's going up against Brooklyn. That has had a lot of point guard turmoil there, too. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now, quickly, before we wrap this one up, the Celtics lost the fourth quarter in overtime. I think it was 28. That's a huge deficit.
Ugly overtime.
Overtime, I mean, they had 9 points in overtime. Overtime seemed like it was 10 minutes long because they were getting blown out completely to start overtime. The game was pretty much over 2 minutes into overtime.
7 points right off the bat in overtime. I mean, how do you
incredible.
do that? I mean, you just...
Well,
they
KCP is how you do that.
They came out. They let a little. I think they were bummed out about Evan Turner. The ball slipped. Are we talking about that in the second video? Or
we're gonna end this one with it.
Okay, because I was talking about that play.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great play
Yeah.
that Stevens drew up. It was just unfortunate that it slipped out of Turner's hands. I thought he had a good look at the basket. He was close range. It's a shot that he said after the game that he's taken thousands of times. And I had no problem with the play, and I watched it over again, and I think it was exactly how they drew it up. It just slipped out of his hands. What I don't like is to see them kind of just slouch their way back to the bench after that, and they came out kind of flat in overtime, and Detroit hit those 7 straight points, and that was that. That was the game. I mean, when you're in a 5-minute overtime, to give up 17 points is craziness.
It's mind-blowing. And, the thing was with that last play there, Stevens said that they set up a misdirection so Turner could come around the screen and try to go for a kind of a runner down the lane, it looked like. I would have wanted to see Turner actually take a step back from the elbow there from 15 feet out. That was the shot he took a couple possessions before that, and it rattled out. If he had hit that shot, they might have actually won the game if he had hit that shot initially. But that's a shot. It's in his arsenal. I mean, he's not a consistent shooter from anywhere on the court, but that's one of his go-to shots. Definitely. I would have rather seen him take that shot because it keeps him away from Drummond, and it gives him more space and more control over the timing of the defender's block.
But again, Drummond was no problem with the final play. It was just, Olynyk created the pick. Olynyk tried to create a pick with Prince, and who was guarding Turner?
Is that KCP?
No.
I can't even remember.
Point guard.
Oh, Jackson.
Jackson, excuse me.
Sorry.
Jackson was right on him. I mean, it was good defense. But that being said, Turner had the shot. He had the look. He admitted after the game, it just slipped out of his hand. Jackson didn't get a hand on it or anything like that.
All right, let's get out of here before this slips out of our hands. So we're going to come back for part 2. Remember to like us on Facebook, follow at The Garden Report on Twitter. That's run by our boss, Nick Gelso, so you can get all the promotional stuff and all that there. Listen to this week's edition of Celtics Beat with Jackie McMullen talking about a surprise, or kind of a stealth dark horse candidate for the Max this offseason for the Celtics. And then, of course, stay tuned for part 2.
Like I just told him, I don't think that has anything to do with the winning and losing of that game. We were in position to win the game. With a lot of guys out, with Isaiah been out, with Marcus been out, we're still in position to win the game. That has nothing to do with us winning and losing the game.
In your opinion, what was the reason that you guys lost the game?
We had a little low offensively late, and we had like a few careless mistakes late. But we still was in position to win the game, and we had the ball at the end of the fourth. We just didn't get shot up, and we went to overtime and lost the game.